I'm Pule, a husband of one and father of two. For years, my identity had been tied to what I do for a living until the year 2020 when everything fell apart. #COVID-19. Almost 5 years ago, I became a father for the first time, and I thought I was ready. Looking down at my son's chubby cheeks, my heart filled with pure joy and trepidation, seeing my exhausted wife on the bed after a water birth, I vowed to be the best father ever. It turns out, I wasn't entirely ready to be the best father ever. I had not prepared accordingly for the different stages in my life, career, marriage, and parenting. I have since lost my job and therefore have chosen to be fully focused on what's important to me. I'm doing right by my vow, and I'm hoping to foster a community of fathers that share similar values. Welcome to the Timer's Playbook, a podcast series on fatherhood, proudly produced by 1730 Media. On today's episode, I have brought back my wife, my partner, my friend, Mrs. Tessa Pule. You know, this parenting thing is tough, and with her by my side, it's just so much better. However, I don't know how it is for other guys out there, but in my relationship, it always feels like we're working on me, you know? And I know that if Roya Minayo comes with her own things and her own baggage. So today it's about unpacking her stuff, you know. So generally she's very good at deflecting stuff and making it look like my shit is more fucked up than hers. But as human beings, singabantu, we bring a lot of baggage into a relationship, but we've managed to work through it. We're still working through it, trying to get better and trying to be the best parents that we can be. And here's our conversation. Please enjoy. Welcome to the Timer's Playbook. It is the Timer's Playbook. What do you mean you're not a timer?
I'm very much female.
You're not here because you're a timer. You're here because you're wife to a timer.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Thank you, Tessa. We've decided to invite you back to the show. And the reason for the invitation is because obviously I am a parent, but I'm not a parent alone. We're doing this together. I am a father, and I'm not a father alone.
Duh.
You're my partner in this.
And
I think it's important that we have certain conversations while I'm talking to men in general.
Okay.
I get it, because men, we should be able to speak to our partners and communicate. It's very important, particularly when raising children, whether you are in a relationship or you're just co-parenting.
Okay.
So I brought you back to the podcast just to understand a bit more about you and your background and how your background is affecting us raise our children. Because we've had the first episode. The first episode was about me and my dad and what. But then again, we've never really delved down into your upbringing.
It's not much of a mystery.
It is a mystery for people that have never listened to the podcast.
No. I'm saying, like, when you said how you and your background and your dad and stuff, I mean, your dad is practically absent, and that has had very specific results in how you are. Whereas on my end, like, as soon as we were even together, like, you were besties with my mother. So my background hasn't been as much of a mystery and required unraveling or the layering that yours required. Because it's always just front and center in your face.
Hence why I'm saying let's have the conversation, because exactly what you just said there, right? Just because it's front and center does not necessarily mean that it doesn't require unpacking and unlayering and so forth.
Okay. Shoot your first question.
First question is, now assume that people listening don't know you.
Nobody knows me.
Give me a bit of background into your upbringing, your family structure, where you're from, etc.
Sure, those are like 4 different questions. I'm number 3 of 4 children between my mother and my dad. I've got an older brother from my dad's side. My both sets of families were very, very close. So I was always surrounded by my dad's cousins, who I thought were also uncles. And it's interesting because it's the same on my mother's side. You know, I've got my aunts, and she had her cousins and her family. And when my parents got together, they picked a church which was very restrictive in worldly relations. Like the whole core of the church was to turn your back against what the majority were doing and craft a world for yourselves that you wanted, and you wanted to raise children in, So by default, I have, from an upbringing point of view, I've got a circle of family that's blood related, church people who are like family but are not blood, but like it's all the people I've known my whole life.
This is why I used to go to random weddings, right? And I never understood
why it was important to me.
And it was like a church person. Yeah.
So it was very close. Like it was crazy close. We spent holidays together. We spent weekends together. My whole life, like from 0 to like 23. So those are my people. And then obviously my parents would have friends from work and colleagues who also then became family. So instead of having just a singular family point of view, I'm made of 3 very interesting and different pasts because of my parents and the choices that they made.
Okay. So it's interesting that you should describe your family like that, because for me, family is just the people in the house.
No.
Right? So for you
that's just my siblings.
I know, that's what I'm saying. You see how we see the stuff, right? And that was a big point of contention between us, because I never understood for a long time how extended people, especially church, could be considered family in the way that you actually consider them family. It's not even a discussion. It's not even utumgan. It's like proper family, like you treat your brother or your sisters.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, our church was amazing, and the relationships. I remember at camp we had this thing. If the Lord's the Lord of us, like a friend's a friend forever. If the Lord's the Lord of us, as long as God lives, we're friends. Mm-hmm. And a friend will not say never, and the welcome will not end. Which is why Dugan and Jess decide they're coming to Joburg. Like, okay, cool, no problem. And it's not a discussion.
Yeah.
And I know I can arrive in Cape Town with the same thing. And I've done it like more than once. You just show up. And people are like, okay, well, I'm at work, so get the key here. And we'll see what we'll do when we get there. And we'll discuss it. And you're like, no, you need to have plans. I'm like, not with these people. It's not a bloody hotel, And it was the same with Tandy. It's the same in Durban. We go down to the Greens. There isn't because now we're all older, obviously. And everybody's everywhere. But even our relationship with Nicole. Like, Nicole did our entire wedding. Because she's like a sister. She's like the 4th sister we didn't have. Every holiday we were together, every camp we were together, You were surprised why Afrikaans couple were inviting us to a wedding in Franschhoek, and I had to go and take you to Cape Town. Now, like, because Dirk is getting married. Like, you don't understand. This is a huge thing.
That was important.
And it was critical to me, Yeah. So that's how church people were my family, because we were raised that way.
Do you want to raise our kids that way? Especially in church, because at the moment we're not going to church.
I was actually thinking about it, and it's a behavioral therapy, because the values of the church at the time was not to do what the people in the world did. It didn't say don't do it and leave you there so you had nothing to do. It actually had activities and programs and courses in education. So it would replace a summer holiday with a summer camp. It would replace your traditional Christian holidays with the ones that we had that kept the fellowship going. So with all the evolutions that had happened in church and things, I mean, when you're a kid, you go through YES and then YOU, and it's a whole scriptural reading. By the time I'm 16, I know everything about the Bible. Like, it's not a mystery to me. But over the years, when they've become more circular, and they're going back to the ways of the world, again, because leadership had an epiphany one day, they made all our holidays optional. Whereas before, you had to, and if you didn't, you were actually disqualified, and there was nothing worse than being disqualified because you were literally in exile. You couldn't engage with anyone from the church until the leadership brought you back in. So because now everything is optional, human beings are human beings. They've got no discipline. They have all of those things. If you're not forcing people to do something and you make it an option, they're not likely to do it. So as much as I'd love to go back to church and keep all of those things going, I know that my church at the moment is not what it was when I was growing. So my kids might not get that. But if I pick a church, let's say Peter, because obviously when they had the new epiphany, our church split into two fragments. There's the ones who wanted to keep the traditional way of doing things, and then there was the group that wanted to evolve. So Peter's half of the church kept rigid.
So Pete was in episode 4, by the way.
Yeah, he's my brother-in-law.
Yeah.
So even that relationship, it ended up with my sister marrying Pete, and our parents were friends, and they're from them. Like, for us, there were no borders. You belonged to the church, so you were one family, irrespective of where you actually were in the world.
Yeah, so for you, the church was more than just the religious part of it, because that's what I saw. It was a lifestyle, but it also gave opportunity to meet people, to travel. So all these things that we want to do for our children, which is, I think, what every parent battles with, right? And how do you help them access these things, whether it's sports, extracurricular activities?
So it's interesting.
So the church provided.
It provided all of it. I mean, if you think Toastmasters and Rotary Club and religion into one, that's what we were.
Okay, that's interesting.
You know, because we did all of those things. We literally, like, everything you can get from Toastmasters, we had speech club from a young age. So there's very few kids in my generation of the church who don't have a voice and know how to use it and how to structure arguments. The way we ran speech club, now I know it's executive level. We had secretaries, treasurers, chairmen, the works. So we could run a board.
Yeah.
So it was always geared towards running society and training the minds from a young age.
Why did you tell me all of this, like, when we started?
Because you didn't understand it.
Yeah, I thought it was church. I hated church.
Yeah, but you didn't. So how do I tell you this is my church and you hate it, but you will listen to the fact that actually come to speech club with me?
No,
this is what we're doing.
No, Tessa, I hated the idea of church because when I was, okay, here's the background. When I was young, my gran used to force us to go to church. So for me, church was just a chore, like something you had to do on a Sunday for a few hours or an hour or so. So you do it and you get it out the way. I wasn't listening to the message. Our church plus was called Reformed de Kerk. What is that?
Reformed that it's the Dutch Reformed Church.
Yeah,
in Afrikaans.
Exactly. You know, so already the name of it is throwing me off because I understand.
Why do I know that? It wasn't my church.
You know these things. You know. So when the time came and I told the church people that I don't want to go to church anymore, they were very disappointed, like I've done something wrong. So that was my idea of church.
So to that, right? We would have speech club after church. So all of our lives and our activities were tied to church. So if you don't like church, you don't get access to everything else, because how are you even going to understand that and why we do it? You see?
Yeah.
So that is really more than my actual family blood ties. That's the foundation I have for growing up and seeing the world and becoming who I am. So if I was to take my children to church, I would go with Peter's branch.
Okay.
That stayed. You know, but that is a serious lifestyle change for you. Because Friday night is a Sabbath.
I'm not going.
But then it doesn't work. So this is why
we're here. And I'm not interested in that.
So this is what was problematic about our church. It divided families. People got divorced over this.
Over what? Like
over the rules of the church.
The structural rules.
You know?
Yeah.
There are certain parts of our church members who took things so far, they didn't speak to their own siblings all their lives. Like, I'm lucky I was young and I was born in the 80s. The church started like in the 50s, 60s or some nonsense. And you'll find a lot of our senior citizens at church now have not spoken to their sisters and their brothers for like 40, 50 years because of church.
Yeah. Which is different to what's happening now.
No.
I'm saying not your church. So there's a lot of new types of.
But this is why they said our church was a cult.
Sprung up, yes. Which now they're called. And whenever a family member generally gets into that, there's tension. So it's morphed into something else now.
So literally, I mean, there are people who would accuse our church of being a cult. And if you look at the definition of cult, we probably fit it 100%.
Yeah.
Because right now, if we go with the other branch that stayed very traditional, Friday night is Sabbath. So pick up the kids, come home, cook up a storm, the whole family's together. No TV, no radio, no nothing. Right? Saturday morning, we get up, we pray, we have breakfast, and we go to church.
Yeah.
That's it.
I think that could...
And then you could fellowship afterwards or whatnot, but the Sabbath runs from Friday night till Saturday night.
It could work now that we have children, but when I was at the height of my YFM days, there's no way.
No way. Dude, we used to negotiate to watch Studio Mix with my dad.
Really?
Do you understand? Like, we would push dinner out as late as possible so we could watch Studio Mix and then start having dinner. Like, that's actually how hectic it was. When we used to have socials at school, like St. Dominic's used to have like amazing socials or whatever, Kwesi and I would be like, okay, social is on this Friday. We asked Auntie, who said yes. Then we asked my mother, who said yes. Then we had to have them campaign, because Ompi was fine, he didn't care. We had to have them campaign to my dad to allow me to go, because it was the Sabbath. I kid you not.
Okay.
It was that real.
So I want you to...
And then there's like 9 different holidays in the year. You know, we follow all of the Jewish holidays. From Passover to Days of Unleavened Bread to Feast of the Feast, 10 years in October, 10 days in October, standard, always on a holiday. So our lifestyle is very antithesis of the world, which causes conflict. And if you come from a family, let's say your parents were Christian and everything was fine, you suddenly choose this church, which is still technically Christian, but we don't observe Easter and we don't do Christmas because those are not real holidays. But your family does. I can't be at your house doing Christmas with you. That's what it meant. So there's a lot of bonuses that came with the structure, like a lot, and I'm testament to most of them.
Sure.
But it came at a price. And to be quite honest, it's a high price to pay, but it worked.
Yeah. And you mentioned your dad. When you were kids, like how would you describe your dad's parenting style? What kind of parent was he?
Wow. You'd have to interview all 4 of us, actually all 5 of us, because we have very different perspectives.
Of course.
My sisters, I think, probably got the best version of my dad at a certain age, because when I was coming out of the bubble of primary school into high school, my dad was awesome. I used to sit on his lap. He was cool, you know? The only thing I ever didn't want dad to do was call me stupid, because Papa doesn't swear. But if he calls you stupid, you're like a fucking idiot, bro. Proper.
I know.
You feel that tiny. But for the most part, dad was the final decision on anything, you know? And
like what? So you mentioned the family thing. So he was in the church?
Yeah, Papa was in the... both my parents. They actually got married in the church.
They met at the church or separately and then they got into the church?
They met separately because they were nursing. They met in a Dalsbury hospital because Papa was doing his thing in pathology and Mom was a nurse. And then Papa joined the church and brought Mom along, and it worked.
Okay.
That's it.
And so when you say that, like, you mean like what? Travel, money, household?
Okay, so did I even pay attention, dude? Like
I know, but from what you recall.
No, you have to hear this. Like, I lived in a fantasy bubble. You know, I had to be in standard 6 to realize that other people did not have entertainment areas at home. Like, a pool was not a standard feature for everybody's house. So mom did mom things. So I thought,
what are mom things?
So that's the other part. Like, mom is very domesticated. Even though we had a helper, OC worked for mom, not for me. It was very clear.
Yeah.
Because I still had chores to do. Mine was to dust and polish that entire house, from skirting boards to brasso. That was my chore.
So, Lovey, what happened to that? Like now?
I have 0 brasso. I don't have
skirting boards.
No, I have no skirting boards. Look at my house.
Clean skating board number 1. Okay, I'm gonna keep you skating board. I don't know what the fuck that is.
So what has happened to that is that I have a home that does not require the chores I had to do when I was a child, because I didn't think they were necessary.
Yeah, plus also, to be fair, like my mother, your mother's different generation. You know, my mother was hectic. Like, the first thing we do is clean. Make sure the house is sorted. That's it. Nothing else. They're like that.
The mopping and all the big-ish jobs were left to my sisters, like the vacuuming and the mopping and whatnot. So I had to do the polishing and the dusting afterwards. And mom taught me how to hand wash, which is why I can still take out blood stain from white t-shirts. Yeah, so no, it's fine.
Jesus.
So basically, like, that's how I know how to, like, do laundry, like hand wash, and how to take stains and things, and how to clear that up. But for the most part, so when my sisters were required to cook, I was required to chop. And I had a big thing for baking, so mom would bake with me as a baking pot, which is why I have like 7 baking books. You know, the things I like, I have.
Yeah.
She was, to be honest, mom's first job actually was to be a maid. So when she was 16, she used to visit her dad, and you know, and there was an old Afrikaans lady who taught her everything she knows.
Yeah.
So that was her part-time gig until she became a nurse. And then at home, dad doesn't do anything. He's never done anything. Like, we learned the circuit at school so we could change plugs at home, you know? Papa's like, why must I fix it when I can call somebody to come and fix it? That's the type of person my dad was. He was always, he's a hippie.
Yeah.
And then he was a yappy, you know, which is a hippie with money and funny ideas about life. You
see, you're using things from 19...
Yeah, but
those are very old things.
I'm a first generation millennial. First one.
Yeah.
So that was who my dad was. I mean, if you wanted to know what was happening in culture, in politics, books, I mean, we're all named after characters in books, his favorite books. So he was very much a thinker and a grand idea type person. He was very disciplined, and he required the same of his children. So mom pretty much did everything else.
Yeah. And the way your dad was when you were looking for a partner?
Nothing like my dad.
Nothing like your dad?
No.
And how you grew up and how I grew up. So just to give people context. So what you're saying in basic terms, you came from money, I didn't, right? And there's other things too, like just high schools were different, areas were different,
religion was different,
so there's a lot of there's a lot of differences. I mean, to the point that
language was different.
No, language is still very different.
No, it's like when you switch to that other talk that you guys do when you're in the hood, like I'm so lost.
You know, so I'm saying in the beginning, did it bother you, like the differences between us? Because I know it bothered your circle.
It didn't bother me.
I'm saying it bothered your circle, so your friends.
Yeah, it didn't bother me.
Because?
So I had learned by like 17, 18 that background doesn't matter. You could be rich, you could be poor. The world is defined and made by the people who want to define and make it. And very few rich people have actually advanced the world, or people born into wealth. People who've advanced the world come from struggle, they come from pain, they come from adversity. So I just remember, like, because there was a phase, right, where you have to find a partner and they're like, write everything, all the qualities you want in your man and blah, 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 fish face. I had like a list of 32.
What?
I did. That's where it started.
Is this in the days of magazines?
Dude, you have no, like, it was even in, but you know, babe, like I was reading self-help books at 17. It makes,
true.
you know, like I met Neil Donald Walsh when he came to the country. I was in high school.
Yeah, so your stuff didn't come from You magazine. Like it came from what we call self-help books now. Okay.
Yeah. And then I woke up one day and I realized that actually I just want a guy to love me. That's it. Like I had one requirement. And it had nothing to do with anything else. I just wanted him to love me. And so we got along. You're a decent guy, you know. You have a lot of otherness. Like, you know, you're from the hood. You are a bit rough around the edges. You like a lot of your behaviors.
Not by the sounds of this podcast, I sound great.
Yeah. I worked on you. I've had 18 years.
Yeah, no, of course. I accept that.
But it really was a shock for my people that I went and I picked a bloke from Dube, Soweto, where I am not from Soweto at all. Like, I would only go as far as, what's that area where UJ is?
Your UJ?
Mm-hmm. Like the campus.
So Pimville side.
Yep. But opposite is a school, right? Like UJ is on the, if you're going into Soweto, the campus is on your left, but on the right at the robots, there's a school here.
I forgot that school.
So that's where we used to go to church.
Oh.
Every Saturday, because we were black, right? And as soon as white people and black people were allowed to integrate, we left Soweto Church and went to East Rand. And then all my friends were white from that point onwards.
You mentioned nicely that people that change the world, you said that generally they would come from adversity, right? Because when you're in a fix, it forces you to do certain things. Now, our aspiration is obviously for our kids to have the best of everything, meaning that they don't necessarily have to suffer, particularly like financially. So best schools, do whatever, that's what we're working towards. How do you think then that hunger to change the world, if they need to, or the hunger to succeed, if the kids are like, let's say, super rich and comfortable, like how do you inculcate that into the rearing of children?
I am super rich. I am comfortable. You just benefit because you're my child. Go make your own damn money. That's it. My kids, the world-roundedness I want for my children. That's why we're fighting about schools right now. Well, not fighting, but we're debating heavy. Mine is, by the time I have the home I want and my bank balance reflects what I wanted to reflect, it's my earning. And I will take that money and I will expose you to everything I want to explore. So doing our world map and traveling, going to learn how to do pottery and kung fu and tai chi, those are the things I'm exploring for myself as an individual.
Yeah.
My kids are going to benefit by default. It's not them. They must figure out what they want.
Yeah, but that's what I'm asking. I hear you. That's the theory behind it. Okay? That's your approach, mentality going to be.
Adversity, sorry, like maybe let me unpack it differently.
Yeah.
Adversity doesn't come from poverty. Capitalism and systematic things create poverty. By capitalistic standards, my grandmother was poor because she didn't make an X number of dollars per day. In reality, my grandmother kept us fed on her 3-acre farm that we used to visit on school holidays and long weekends. We used to come back with nuts, mangoes, food, everything everyone comes back from Limpopo with.
Yeah.
That's what we ate for the bulk of the time.
And your family, your clan has got land for days.
So that's not poor.
Yeah.
By no means is that poor. But my son will go to the best school and encounter a teacher who'll fuck up his mind or his idea, or he'll shake up his sense of knowing, you know, or somebody's going to make my child feel small on some level with some comment. That's where it begins. You know, we don't have to be a war-torn country to become something.
No, look, we've got enough problems here. There's enough to fix.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So mine is to do the things I want to do, drag my children with. I do not have the time to make my child read every book I've read, to go to every place and have every experience I've had. He has to have his own. But when I'm living my life, they're going to learn because there's an option either than what they know.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, look at us. We're a great tag team. Like, TJ knows, but he hasn't found the words to say, how come Khunu's house and Makulu's house and Mantong and Hulu Miranda's house is so different? And what makes them different? We haven't taken him to Elim. You know, we will go to Elim and we will sleep at Kokwani's house. And he'll have questions.
Yeah.
But that's how we do it. We are different. We're not from the same thing.
My worry is not a worry, but one thing that I think about is how are we raising the children to go after whatever it is that they want, you know? And that's not something I think we can leave up to just the world and to schools and so forth. Yeah, you're right. You know, drive doesn't necessarily come from hunger or adversity and so forth, right? But there's many examples of people that want for nothing. And then the reason why I am aspiring to homes and cars and a better life or a soft life and this, that is a lot of it is driven by not having had that. I don't know if I had it, there'd be a need for it.
Yes.
I don't know. No, I'm saying I don't know. But I'm saying for my kids, how I structure them and their mentality in going forward is something that we have to deeply think about. So for now, all the parents that we're talking to are thinking about what kind of school to send them to, right?
You know, so to make it simpler, I mean, you know Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Everybody speaks, but once you've had your foundation, like the first 2 layers sorted out, then you have time to entertain self-actualization. When you're actually living it, it's a completely different take. You know?
You say what? When you're past the... Let me just remember what the needs are. Just open them quick.
It's safety, it's shelter, safety and security.
It's physiological, safety, belonging, blah, blah, blah.
Physiological is like your food.
Yeah, sustenance. Safety. So it's physiological, safety, belongingness, love, esteem, and then self-actualization, which is...
what I'm after.
Yeah, I want to be a ballet dancer.
You know? And maybe I need to come down and secure my house first.
Maybe.
And then help my husband out. But the reality is, my love, once the house is paid off completely, and you know it costs like $4,000 a month to maintain it. Once the trust funds for the kids have been established and their education is sorted, and you have no major expenses that you're facing, you know, you entertain, like your vibration shifts. and your mind and your thought goes to different type. It follows different patterns.
Yes.
So if you wake up and you realize, good, actually, Mweti likes building blocks. We start with the Legos. He starts to put his things together. They get more challenging as he grows. Next thing you know, he's got the mind of an engineer. He now has this thing about building structures, like whatever will start to motivate him. If we teach him, good, whatever you do, if it serves humanity and advances humanity, you'll be good.
Yeah.
That's the balance. If Mpo reckons, good, no, yeah, now he's not going to be the athlete that we all think he is because he's built for it. If he thinks, good, actually his future is in art and creative expression, because that's what he's also good at.
Yeah.
If we align his development, his curiosity, to a point where he serves humanity for the greater good. That's like my only aim for my children. Whatever you do, make sure you serve humanity.
Yeah.
They'll be fine. And they'll be challenged enough.
Yeah. And sometimes that when we hear that, when people say that, it sounds like an enormous task, like you're curing AIDS. It's not even necessarily that. Sometimes it could just literally be entertainment.
Exactly.
Sometimes you're a teacher, sometimes you are an entertainer, an influencer, and you get on social media and you make great videos that make people happy, put a smile on their face. So we're basically saying from an early age, they need to experiment and try things. And whatever they move towards is what we encourage and develop.
Yeah.
Not that you need to get into this box, go to school, this, that, and then you'll have a successful life. We can't even define success. They need to define it for themselves.
Yeah. So which is why my dad is such an important figure in my life. Because Papa has never, and there was a time when I thought it was a problem. Good, Papa didn't put his foot down and make us do 1, 2, 3. And there was a time where I thought it was the greatest thing. Because like even when I met you, I had a lot of freedom for somebody that age who had that type of allowance coming from my mother. And had I not managed myself and conducted myself the way I did, my life story would be very different. But I remember I was 16, 17, Papa had a bar or whatever. I was hanging out with my friends. And my dad was like, you're starting to do this partying thing. He could see where it was going.
Yeah.
And he's like, you don't drink anything you've never seen in this house. I was like, cool. It's one rule to follow. I can follow one rule. Get to a club and try to order a shot of whiskey Glenfiddich 12 years.
Yeah.
That's all of your drinking money gone on one drink.
That's all you saw at home.
There's no Storm, there's no Smirnoff vodka, there's no cocktail, there's no like 20, 30 rand drinks. No. A single shot is your entire 50 rand for clubbing that night.
But that's gone. That's what I'm saying. You see that dynamic there? That's exactly what I'm saying, right? You become accustomed to certain things.
Yeah.
So like the kids we're raising now, and you mentioned that their grandmothers come from different places or live in different environments. For example, our children now are growing up with Netflix, right? Because it's normal now in 2021 to stream, to do whatever. When they go to Dubai or even to your grandhouse, our grandmothers are not streaming.
No.
But they're used to it now because streaming allows them to choose what they want and they watch when they want. And it's normal for them. So when they go there, they're like, I understand why remote is a change the way it's supposed to. You understand? And we're trying to educate them that no,
it doesn't work that way.
Technology ne and then that little promoter show you how it will maybe 3 months you wait. It's not Netflix or any streaming service.
It's the same as us. That's why it doesn't bug me. Like I see you try to explain. Like for me, going to Gogani didn't have a TV.
No, but those are the things we're saying.
Yeah, she didn't have a TV. She didn't have electricity. And Go High, I had Mnet, not open time.
I understand. Hold on, babe. What I'm trying to ask is this. With all of this happening, how can parents understand for children not to get lost in it? Because some people do get lost. Like they think the world is just going to bow down to how they how they see the world and so forth. But some rich kids just never get out of that thing.
Well, it's because they don't really have diversity. And I say this because I look at my cousins, right? Like we all had the same kokwani. We all had like the nothingness that is deemed by the West. But my cousins are relatively productive, successful, working people, and they have homes, they have families, they have people who love them. They're successful individuals. So diversity is just that. This is the other thing people don't understand.
Diversity in experience.
Yeah, diversity in experience.
Yeah.
Not like race and color and what people think.
That is also experience. Yeah.
It is really in experience. Like, first of all, my son greets this homeless guy, the robots, when I fetch them from school without fail. And he waves. And the guy waves back. There's going to come a time when he asks me, Mom, why is he on the street all the time? Now it's just normal. He's the guy who's there.
Yeah.
But there's a question's going to come, and I'm going to have to try and explain to my son. Because this man probably has a really hard story that has led him. So he understands homelessness. And he understands how people can possibly end up homeless. He can't conceptualize it. Like we can't conceptualize,
of course,
being homeless. We can't. But you can understand how people get into those situations, Like TJ is having really massive conversations with me now, which is why I'm like, okay, it's time for you to have a lot more activities in your schedule.
Yes.
Because that's where you are. You're curious about everything. I don't know everything. I'm still trying to get my life together.
Oh, for real? You don't know everything?
No.
On record, you're saying that?
I just know more than you.
No, you don't.
I know everything. I know more than you.
No, you don't.
So I don't have, I'm still getting certain parts of my life together. And, kiddo, come along for the ride until you get on your own. That's it. That's literally the best I can do for my children.
Yeah.
Come along for my ride until you get your own.
Yeah. So here's another thing. And talking about TJ. TJ is 5 now. And Linda has just hit me actually in the last few weeks. Because maybe something happened when he turned 5 in December.
We took him on holiday for the first
time. But also even
bloody COVID.
Yeah, even Leon, he's been saying that he wants to go to the beach, he wants to get on a plane, he wants to do all these things that we haven't been able to do for him, which I thought would take longer to get to. I didn't realize, hence I'm doing this podcast, because you were right. I didn't read books about children. And I didn't prepare, and obviously you can prepare to a point, but you can learn. When you guys said, I think you said between the ages of 3 and 8 or something.
0 and 8.
Yeah, they absorb a lot. I didn't get that. I was like, no, that's not possible. I am seeing it now.
They're encoding at a rapid, neurologically, what happens to your kid's brain between birth and 8 is downloading.
Yes.
Of an intense proportion. Like you are never ever physiologically able to download like that ever again in your life.
Yeah.
So everything they do, they don't see the world the way we see it. Like you'll look at the camera, you see an expensive piece of equipment, right?
I know.
That can produce amazing video and film. He's just seeing a piece of plastic that clicks and does this and has this button and that button and it opens here and this thing turns and this one makes this noise and this is what I look like. Oh, look, there's a picture. I'm in it. How am I in it? Opens it. And then dad has a fit.
Yeah. So yes, you're right. Some kid would open it. Let me see how it works.
Because your kids would have opened it if you let them. I kid you not.
Your small kid would have opened it.
So what happens in the brain is...
when kids start opening my cameras.
So what happens in that, that's what you see. But and that's just one item. They look at chairs, tables, lights, toys, stairs, paint, food, TV, other people, cars, everything in their environment, they look at like that all the time.
Yeah. And a lot of them, most of the time, when I talk to him or them, they're not making judgments on it.
No.
And it's what we are telling them.
Yes.
So when he asks a question, like even when you're listening to music, like why did he say that? Why is he doing this? You know, like for example, when we're driving and you had irritated me and then I said a bad word. And he's like, why did you say a bad word? I'm like, no, I'm just irritated. But he's like, he doesn't know what irritated means. But then he's asking me, why are you saying a bad word when you keep telling me not to say bad words?
Exactly.
So now you have to explain that dad is a hypocrite. Remember, that's what parents do. They tell you one thing and do the exact opposite.
You know, and it's crazy because there's a certain part they've already figured out. Like that, because they have watched us longer than we've watched them. They've sussed us out. Like now when we argue in the kitchen, I've noticed, like whatever argument that we have, TJ doesn't come and interfere anymore.
Yeah. He actually pulls back.
When he was 2 or 3, he's like, Mommy, Daddy, don't fight. And we're explaining to him, we're not fighting. We're having a passionate conversation or we are arguing.
Yeah, which he still didn't understand.
Now he just looks at us, takes some paw and goes to the bedroom. You know? So he's learned. We have conditioned him on that.
Yeah.
Hopefully, when he and his partner argue in the future, he argues like that.
Yeah.
And there's no escalation to actual physical harm.
Or even swearing,
emotional harm.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't degenerate to pain.
Yeah.
You know? Which will be interesting because should his partner come from a different background of how they settle conflict and discord, they will fight. Because he'll be like, this is how you do it. This is how it's done. Case in point, my mother was very, very loud, very passionate, like in your face, monologue, screaming, swearing, the works. Papa, exact opposite.
Yeah.
You know? And in my home, violence wasn't a thing. But we sheltered a lot of my parents' friends who were victims of violence because it was a thing there. So we got first-hand experience of what the other could be. Why? Because our 3 different backgrounds and circles give you so much more diversity than your singular full unit family.
Okay. And that's the beauty then of these experiences that you were talking about.
Yeah. And I'm a smart girl, so.
Yeah, okay.
I've done a lot of internal, personal unpackaging. Because, mind you, this stuff didn't make sense to me always.
Which stuff?
All of it.
Yeah.
I didn't understand why I had to be the only kid who couldn't go to a social. I didn't understand why I couldn't go do specific sports that had competitions on Saturdays because I had to be at church when everybody else goes to church on Sunday. It's not like nobody else wasn't doing it.
Yeah, it's funny. Pete said the same thing when he was growing up.
I didn't understand why there was poverty. You know, why couldn't you just do a job, get paid decent money? Like, why would you choose to live the way you want to, the way you are living?
Yeah.
You know, I didn't understand capitalism. I'm damn near 40 and I still don't.
You still don't, yeah. I still don't. You don't understand.
However, I think my biggest conflict was my favorite aunt and uncle. And he was abusive to her. I didn't understand why. I didn't. And then eventually, like, I got older and I got divorced and separate. And I was having a conversation with her. We have to go visit her, by the way.
Okay.
I was having a conversation with her, and she's like, but Tess, you were there. And all my favorite memories, there's that part where they'd fight. You know, I'd go play with my Lego outside, build a sandcastle, come back 3 hours later, and there was no more fighting. But in that moment, it got physical, like he proper punched her up. It's crazy. Those are the things like I've had to overcome. I've had to see my dad for the father he was to me versus the father to my siblings versus the husband to my mother. And no, I would not pick a man like my father. But I love my father with all that I am. I am his daughter through and through. I see how I live through him. Which is crazy. Because that's the internal work it takes. I love my mother. Everybody, like I've got her legs, the way I look after other people, like this mothering thing I got from my mom. But I didn't speak to my mom for like 3 years in high school. It's so, when you know what you know it. Because I know what it costs not to know it. And the pain and the anger and the hurt that it carries. And I think personally, now that I've waited so long to have children, that's probably partly why.
I didn't wait for that long. It was a good time.
Hi, baby. People having kids in their 20s, and I am waiting until I'm mid-30s.
Me, I was having fun. I don't know what you were doing.
To be quite honest, I wanted to raise children who didn't have to overcome their background. That was my intention. Yes. So I had to be okay on certain things.
And that
the reality is, they'll have to overcome the background whatever we choose.
That's what I was saying. It's irrespective of what background they come from, rich or poor or whatever.
Like, please, let's not spend 5 years in therapy because your parents were your parents.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to not get them to do. But even whatever we decide and however the die is cast, our kids are always going to have to overcome something. They're going to have to do the growth, the personal development, the critical thinking, reasoning, the self-actualization exercises, pushing themselves. They have to do all of those things to get to be whoever they choose to be.
Yeah. What I'm trying to do, I want to let go a bit more, because I've just always worried about the kids, that what are they doing? They're going to hurt themselves and this, that. And part of that is you actually have to let them get hurt, not like break their neck, but they have to go experience things, like you're saying. They have to try stuff. They have to, we keep telling these people not to jump from couches or beds. Like, we keep saying it.
He was on the table. He can't jump from the table. Not because he won't land on his feet. He can't jump from the table because it's just bad manners.
No, I know. But I'm saying, for them, they don't understand that yet. I get. And this is we're not trying to hurt our kids. Sometimes he's going to understand that I shouldn't jump from here because that's what happens. Or I should, because then I learn how to land. So yesterday when I took them to the park, and they're riding the bicycle, so I'll generally run after them to make sure about but then I left them. I was like, okay, run.
You really did?
No, I did.
It's like for the first time ever.
I said, and I'm just watching them, and then obviously because they're learning to ride bicycles, and then when they get stuck, then I'm like, I must go shift them. But your son, especially the big one, Mr. Patty, he was getting people to come push him. So hey, I'm stuck, and he's very good at that. And that's a skill that I don't have.
No, he is very good at soliciting, starting a conversations with absolute strangers.
The first thing he did when he started, there was a lady, as he does your son with ladies. It's a mother, actually. Hello. And then he goes around. Hello again. Did that 10 times. Then there was an older lady that came. She started sitting why don't you have a kid with you? Which is good because you don't want people running around.
Why are you in a child's park?
And they started a conversation, And then there's another one and there's another one. So with me, how we learned when we're growing up, is don't talk to people. How to tell what's saying? Hey, and the more we do that, the more we're almost dimming his light, because that's who he is. There's certain things that he'll learn about. And I hate the thing strangers, because that's actually how you meet people. So that's another thing we're just going to have to learn to teach somehow. I don't know how to do it yet. But what I'm trying to say is, let them go, to a point. But they have to go and discover the world themselves. We just have to provide the platform and the structure within to do that.
So, your son has my personality. Walk into a room.
Both of them do.
No, I'm serious. Like, walk through Tessa, I'm like, I'm going to say hi to her.
Yes.
And you're like, why are you speaking to people? Like, that's what we're here to do. That's what mingling is.
No, thina sikhuluma ngokumazisa.
Wait, number umazisa, angikwazi ukumazisa mina.
No, I know, but I'm
Like,
saying
even today, angikwazi ukumazisa.
Even to this day, I mazisa. Mfethu this bag with company what mazisa.
You know?
Yeah.
So, what are you pledging to do? Because your kids are like tiny, right? And there is so many activities that you can take them to before they're 8. Because after that, they'll tell you what they want to do.
Yeah, well, I've already pledged, Akir, that my
Give it at least
ambit of things, sports. That's my thing. That's what I'm starting.
Yeah, so ice skating and rock climbing and hiking, those are sports?
1000%. Those are more like games and what do I call those things? Activities. Those are good activities. No, but I'm saying, because going back earlier, I'm seeing now with TJ, it's a good time to start those things now. So my pledge is those things that I think are important for them to try, which is competition, which is participation, teamwork, or singular. But they have to get out there. So football, so even something like yoga, which they're already doing at the school. That's not something I would have even thought about had I never met you and I've never been introduced to this world, but that's important. You know, so reading consistently. Actually, big pledge. There's a thing there in Melville by 54 Boxes where they have books, you know, where they deal with different stories and not just Caucasian American nonsense that I want to go back to. So reading is important because when they absorb information like this book that we have here, Casta, again, Stories of Casta is ingrained in TJ now.
It is.
And when he meets her one day,
he's going to be so flawed.
You understand? And I didn't realize that it's that easy to teach them about their heroes, their history, their understanding, you know, put it in a story format, do it over and over again, and now they understand, you know, and simple things like in the story, Casta's always eating sweets. We've been trying to tell them like, hey, dude, he even asked me yesterday, why is she always eating so many sweets? For her to run and compete, well, he didn't say compete, but for her to run, she must be eating her veggies and fruit and water. And I'm like, nigga, what the fuck? I tell you that all the time. Why are you telling me this now? Just go drink your water. So these things, they get in.
And now they just drink water all day.
You know, they get in and you never know when they're going to come out. You know, so those are the things, you know, start the experiences now, irrespective of whether we can afford them or not. You do what you can.
So when are we going to Lion Park?
Next week.
Okay.
Next recording, me and you would have gone to Lion Park.
Okay, sharp.
Yeah.
Do you have everything you need to know?
Yeah, no, I've got things. So I can see you thinking as I was it.
Like, how do you figure?
There, you just explained.
Oh.
Yeah, no, it's not a problem, per se.
No?
But that's a story for another day.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I shall see you on the next episode.
Okay, cool.
Cool.
Sharp.
The music is by The Highline, Chef Brian, and The Missing 11th. Thank you again to Mrs. Tessa Pule for participating in today's episode, and thank her so much for being open, candid, and honest in our conversation. So she'll be back periodically throughout the series of fatherhood because it only makes sense, right? Like I said, I'm not doing this thing alone. We're doing this together. Please subscribe, like, and share this podcast. Our Facebook page is 1730 Media. I'll see you in the next episode. Sharp.